When I was but a wee lad, we often went to the Oregon coast as a family. Cannon Beach would be one of the regular stops we would stop at, and I loved poking around the galleries, hoping to see someone painting live. When I would spot a watercolor artist painting an ocean scene, I thought it was just the coolest and looked like so much fun. Despite the fact that my young brain wasn't fully formed and I wasn't right about much, it turns out I was correct that painting ocean scenes in watercolor is in fact the coolest and is so much fun. Only now all I have to do is go grab a piece of paper and let my imagination help me out a bit. I will do a show and tell as to how I like to do ocean wave paintings, and maybe I will give you some good ideas for your next seascape. I am starting out on dry paper because I want to do dry brush shapes for the top of my wave. I like bigger brushes for this because the idea is to just plop down some shapes and quickly move on without thinking too much about it or fiddling with them. I am planning to do another layer or two of this after this layer dries, so if you end up with shapes that look too homely, don't worry about it. Leave them, and we can adjust them a bit on the next layer. You may notice that I don't have a pencil sketch on my paper, and that is because Danger is my middle name, and I like to live life on the edge. However, if your middle name is not Danger, or if you just want to do this the smarter way, I would suggest drawing or tracing a few things ahead of time. Most of the shapes on an ocean scene are pretty forgiving, but drawing the shape of the thin sheet of water going over the wet sand is really helpful. And I would do that ahead of time. Drawing the shape of the curl of the wave is the other super helpful thing to have pencil lines for. You can decide how complete you want to make your pencil sketch. However, I would suggest doing more of a rough sketch and not getting too detailed. We are trying to keep this loose, quick, and fun. If you decide to sketch in the top of the wave, you might try to keep your pencil lines really light. We want to see what happens with the dry brushing up there, and just go with the flow. Wet sand is a rather flexible subject. You can try all sorts of different things with it, and it'll still look fine. What are you going to be like, "Aw, man, I screwed up my wet sand. It looks like mud." Well, it sort of is like mud, right? There are 3 things I like to remember when painting wet sand, though. The first is I like to have it be the darkest on the bottom and get lighter as it goes up. This will hopefully help your sand to have more depth. The second is, since this is wet sand, I want to hint at some reflections to hopefully make it look wet. Since we're trying to keep this loose, I'm not trying to get too crazy with how precise the reflections are. I'm just picking places where the water sticks out a little on the thin sheet of water, and I'm leaving a white shape going straight down from there. I am trying to just suggest the reflections, so the white shapes I'm leaving are lost and found. I'm not too worried what these shapes look like other than I'm trying to avoid having solid white shapes going down from my water. I'm not trying to add table legs to my water. They should come and go as they go straight down. The third thing I'm trying to do is add some shapes that loosely echo the shape of the thin sheet of water. Every time a wave comes in, it stops and sort of leaves a mark in the sand. I just want to suggest a few of these shapes. The main reason I want to suggest some of these shapes is to have more horizontal lines countering the vertical shapes from the reflections. I think hinting at more of these horizontal lines helps the sand to read as flat sand with some reflections in it. Without any of these horizontal lines, the reflections may make our sand look more like a cliff that starts at the edge of the water, and we don't want that. I am roughing in some shapes in the curl of the wave to hopefully help it read like a wave. With this layer, I am mostly concerned with getting some lines and shapes that follow the curl around to give it the impression of the shape of the wave. There are ridges in the water and foam and things that swoop around in the wave. I am just trying to suggest some of these shapes in a simplified version fairly quickly. I like using a bigger brush for doing these quick shapes because it helps me to keep it simple. If I had a small brush in my hand here, I would be tempted to meticulously paint every little detail in the wave. I will use a smaller brush to add some detail to the curve of the wave, but I really fought to limit how long I used it, as I would like this painting to be a looser, simpler wave. If you do decide to try a bigger brush here, having pencil lines with the shape of the curl will help keep your brush going in the right direction. Waves are actually rather complicated subjects. They are tubes of water where, depending on where the light is coming from, it will totally change how they look. Water is swirling, crashing around with mist spraying, foam wandering about. So to simplify painting the curl of a wave, I like to think about 3 things. 1. Shape. Painting some lost and found lines that follow the shape of the curl, like I've been doing, is the first thing I think about with waves. I like using lost and found lines and shapes for this, because I am just trying to hint at the shape of the curl. I'm not trying to do solid cartoonish lines following the curl. I want my lines and shapes to appear, disappear, get fatter, thinner, while swooping around in the shape of the wave. I like dry brushing for this, or even charging wet paint into damp paint. Whatever technique you want to try, you can have fun with this. So the main thing I'm trying to do here is use lost and found lines and shapes to just suggest the curl of the wave. We can add a few details to the wave later after this layer dries. 2. Values, which are lights and darks. Lighting on a wave can get complicated depending on where the sunlight is coming from. So, to keep it simple, I like to remember that the bottom of the wave is the darkest because you are looking through a thicker amount of water. It will get lighter as you go up the curl of the wave because the wave gets thinner and thinner. So, you are looking through less water. Once you near the top of the wave as it is curling towards you, it gets darker again and is shadowing itself. That is the simple version. If you want to try more complicated wave lighting, you'll want to use reference photos to help guide you. I'm going to do some details with a smaller brush, but I will try to do them quickly and not fiddle too much with them. Mostly I'm trying to add some darks to make my lights pop out a little more. And I want to give the sheet of water a little thickness, so I'm adding a shadow on the edge of it so it doesn't look paper thin. The third thing I like to think about with waves is color. Colors pop the most with contrast. I love the amazing blue-greens that you see in waves, but I don't want to paint the whole wave that same color. I think it'll stick out better if there is a smaller amount of that color. What I like to do with waves is fade the colors from right to left. In this case, I have a purplish blue on the right, and as we go to the left, it gets bluer, then blue-green, then greenish. I don't end up having a lot of the blue-green that I really like in the wave, but I think fading into that color draws your eyes there and is just more interesting than if we painted the whole wave that color. Adding little bits of contrasting warm colors in the wave also helps draw the eye. A super handy technique for watercolor is painting a shape onto dry paper, leaving a hard edge on one side, and then fading the other edge using a brush with just clean water on it. I am doing this with the dry brush marks on top of the foam. I plop a dry brush mark down, and then fade the other side with a wet brush. And I use this technique all of the time, so getting used to painting shapes with a hard edge on one side and a faded edge on the other is a great thing to practice. Back to color really fast. When I start a painting, I try to decide if it's going to be a warm dominant painting or a cool dominant painting. I think it is best to pick one or the other, and I usually aim for like 70% warm colors and 30% cool colors if it's a warm painting, or vice versa if it's a cool painting. These aren't exact numbers of course. I just want the painting to feel either warm or cool. With this painting, you can probably tell that I wanted it to be a warm painting. I think the cool colors actually stand out better when most of the painting is warm. In my opinion, rocks are a great place to use the charging technique. Charging paint is a wet-on-wet technique where you put down a wet color, let it dry slightly, and then come in with a wet brush full of a different color. I like to have a lot of paint on a wet brush when I charge the paint. It works best if the paint on your paper is a bit drier than your brush. Charging paint is a lot of fun, but it does take some practice. I suggest experimenting with charging on some practice paper and see what happens. Also, with charging paint, less is more. I'm always tempted to keep fiddling with it because it's quite entertaining. However, the more you fiddle with it, the worse it looks when it dries. So it is best to charge a few colors in there and call it good. Let it dry and move on. I love hanging out on the southern Oregon coast first thing in the morning. There is often wispy low fog that floats in between the multitude of sea stacks. It is the coolest thing to see. So I'm going to add some fog in between the rocks by lifting paint. The idea with lifting is to just put clean water on a brush, scrub back and forth, then blot it with a tissue, and repeat. Don't use a good brush for this. Use something that's old and worn out or is just plain stiff. If you use a good brush for this, it'll become worn out in a hurry. I think flat brushes work the best for lifting. Today I'm using some brushes I found on Amazon that are designed for lifting called scrubber brushes. They are inexpensive and a bit stiffer than normal, so they are more aggressive at lifting paint than a normal worn out brush. If you want to check them out, I will put an Amazon link in the description below, along with the paint colors I'm using and other items that I'm using in this painting. A word of caution though, cheaper papers don't hold up as well for lifting paint. If you scrub them too much, the paper fibers will start to disintegrate. 100% cotton papers usually hold up better to lifting than wood pulp papers. The fancier, more expensive papers, like Arches, which I'm using here, tend to hold up very well to the scrubbing you do when lifting. If you haven't done much lifting before, I would experiment on a piece of test paper, maybe from a painting that didn't work out. If you decide to try the scrubber brushes, test them gently until you see how they work. They lift well and quickly, but can destroy cheap wood pulp paper in a hurry if you aren't careful. As I finish up my painting, I'm using a few different methods to do highlights. Razor blades are great for scratching in small highlights. You can use white paint, although I prefer white gouache paint, which is a more opaque version of watercolor, because it seems to work better than watercolor white. I even like using my little Dremel grinder to grind in some highlights. I'm not sure if the Dremel works any better than using white gouache, as they basically do the same thing. However, the Dremel is rather entertaining to use for some reason. Whichever method of highlighting you prefer, just remember to keep them small. We don't want to do large blobby shapes with white paint if we can avoid it. We certainly don't want to scratch large highlights with the razor blade or grind giant shapes. It just won't look very good. These highlights are supposed to be small flourishes. The last two things that I think you should do to finish your seascape painting is to spritz little dots of paint onto your sand using an old brush or toothbrush, mostly because it's fun to do, but it also gives your sand a little bit more texture. Just be careful to protect your water from the spritzing so you don't end up with a bunch of little paint dots all over your water. Then, of course, we need seagulls. What seascape is complete without seagulls? You can just paint little V's in the sky, but I like to try to give them just a little bit of character. It is your wave painting though, so the amount of seagulls you paint and the amount of character you give them is up to you. And that is it. Our seascape is complete. Okay, I want to add a few more highlight dots. Maybe a few more over here. Almost done. Okay, I need to put the grinder down now and just walk away. Just walk away.